So we finished David's Psalm of Thanks, and I gotta say, it's blown me away. It was something where at first I thought, yeah, I don't know about this. What am I supposed to teach? It just kind of seems exaggerated, and I don't know what to do with this. But afterwards, I was like, wow, God is so big. He's just blown me away. I am just so impressed with His majesty, and that's been the feedback from other people. They just say, my vision of God has just been blown up through this passage of Scripture. So I'd like to share some highlights with you from this. It's in 2 Samuel 22. And first, David's saying how hopeless his situation is. He says, for the waves of death encompass me. The torrents of destruction overwhelm me. The cords of Sheol surrounded me. The snares of death confronted me. So he's talking about the waves of death. I can remember when I was 10 or 11, I got caught up in a wave of the ocean when I was playing there. And I started getting pulled head over heels in this wave. And I remember to this day the sense of helplessness that came with that, knowing that I am at the mercy of the ocean and I don't know what's going to happen here. Maybe you've also been caught up like that before. Where I come from, there's a lot of rivers, and sometimes we were stupid and the water would be up high and we'd try to go out into them anyhow. And about the time you get up to your thigh, you realize how strong these torrents, or in David's situation, these torrents of destruction can be. That you begin to get sucked away, and you can imagine that it's going to pull you down under some tree somewhere and leave you there to die. And to realize that you're getting helplessly pulled away, the rocks are shifting from under your feet, and the torrent is starting to pull you with it towards the center of the river. That is a terrifying feeling. And that's what David's saying. He's saying, I was totally helpless. I couldn't do anything. I was getting pulled away. I was going head over heels. There was nothing I could do. And so he did the only thing he could do. He cried to God. Yes, I cried to my God, and from his temple he heard my voice. My cry for him came to his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked. The foundations of heaven were trembling and were shaken because he was angry. Smoke went out from his nostrils, and fire from his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also and came down, with thick darkness under his feet, and he rode on a cherubim and flew, and he appeared on the wings of the wind, and he made darkness canopies around him, a mass of waters, thick clouds from the sky. From the brightness before him, coals of fire were kindled. The Lord thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. I think that's so crazy. That's such a different perspective of God than what we usually have. We usually think of Jesus as, like this nice little teddy bear that you go to and have some snuggles with when you need some comfort. But this is actually the God of the Bible, not like some seminary professors would teach you, well, the God of the Old Testament is not the same as the God of the New Testament. The God of the Old Testament is full of wrath and anger, and the God of the New Testament is a cuddle bear. No, that's not the way it works. Nice that you think that's not the way it works. The God who describes himself in the Old Testament is the same as the God of the New Testament. And the God of the New Testament, we read, it says that God dwells in unapproachable light. We also read that when John meets Jesus in his resurrected, glorious form, he says, and his face shone like the sun in all of its radiance. Now, the sun, the radiance of the sun is 400 trillion watts. I have here a construction light that has 20 watts. And I can promise you, if you look into this, not so much on the camera, but if you were to look into this in real life, you would be blinded. We tested that in the youth group, and it has proved to be true. They were very blind and did not like the experience, so I turned it off pretty quickly with them. But God dwells in unapproachable light. He is so bright, so glorious, so magnificent, that if we in our fleshly form were to come into contact with him, we would melt away. We see things similar to this in the books of Moses, where he says, if I were to come among you for even a moment, I would destroy you. And even though Moses, it says that Moses spoke face to face with God, but then when Moses himself asks to see God, God says, no, you can't see me. No man can see me and live. His flesh would melt away. God says, you can't see my glory. I will let my goodness pass before you, but you can't even see my goodness from the front. So you need to hide, and then when I'm off a ways, then you can look at my goodness from behind. But you can't even look at my goodness face to face, or you would just melt. It would literally melt your face, is what we would say today. Your face would melt off. So that's how amazing, how glorious, how magnificent God is. that if we were to come into contact with him, we would just melt away. And beyond that, I think we would also become immediately addicted to the presence of God. I've heard from a lot of people who've had near-death experiences that when they return, they automatically have such a desire to go back. It's not enough for them. They want to go back. They want to be in the presence of God again. If you see God one time, then you'll want to see God another second, and you'll never want to leave. And that's why God doesn't want us to see him yet, because as soon as we've seen him, we'll never want to come back here to the stupid earth with all these stupid people. I mean, even Jesus, he goes on the Mount of Transfiguration, and then he comes back and he sees all these silly problems around him. At least they seem silly in perspective of the glory of God. And it says that he sighs. It says, how long do I have to bear with you? This is Jesus. He's like, I just want to go back to the glorious place. Why do I have to be here on earth? And if it's that way with Jesus, then it'll be that way with us. If we saw God one time, it wouldn't be enough. We say, oh, if I saw him once, it'd be enough. No, it wouldn't. Then we'd just be like, oh, God, let me see you a second time. Oh, let me see you a third time. It'd never be enough. And so we don't get to see him until we get to stay with him forever. But so that God can encounter us without melting our faces, he clothes himself in thick darkness. He hides himself. He covers himself in this darkness, maybe so that we can't even perceive him. And then, one could read this and think, God, he's so dark. It's almost like he's evil. But actually, he's concealing himself for our glory, like Moses, who would have a veil over his face. Now that was to conceal the fading glory. But God conceals himself to conceal his glory so that we wouldn't be destroyed by it, so that he can actually have this relationship with us. That's why he didn't come as some amazing kingly prince with some amazing beauty. No, he came in the form of kind of probably an ugly carpenter's son. He was in a poor family. There was nothing about him that would draw us to him except the message that he carried in his heart and the works that he did. And that's our God. And he wants to encounter us. That's the reason why he clothes his glory, so that he can encounter us. And I just find that so amazing. And he says that anything that we do for the least of these, our brethren, his brethren, that we do it unto him. And so in essence, if we serve somebody who's in need, if we serve a homeless person, a widow, an orphan, a refugee, whatever, the foreigner, the persecuted, if we serve these people, Jesus says, look, you're serving me. I've disguised myself, so to say, as this person. You're serving me. So I hope that encourages you guys today to look for God who is to clothe himself in darkness, so to say. That maybe the addict you see on the street, if you serve him in the name of Christ, then you're serving Christ. And I don't want to make too much out of that, because it is an analogy. But Christ, he says, whatever we do to one of these, the least of them, that we do that unto him. So I want to encourage you, seek God in ways that he's concealed himself. For it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it is the glory of kings to search a matter out. So seek God in his glory, and one day we will see him in the fullness of his glory, and we will be blown away. God bless you guys. Have a good day.